So, if you're eagle-eyed, you'll notice that I'm actually filming these two videos back to back. So, I'm going to publish the artillery first and the infantry second. So, if you want to see how to paint a British foot artillery miniature, check out that video on the channel. So, we're going to do the brass shako plate. This would have like a regimental thing on it. If you're painting the 28th, which is the 28th, which is the one regiment you can't actually do with these miniatures, because the 28th actually have a shako badge on the rear as well, for an action at Alexandria, where they were charged by French heavy cavalry at Alexandria down in Egypt there, charged in line, front on by heavy cavalry, and then after the heavy cavalry had smashed into them, instead of running away, they were given the order rear rank reverse, or rear rank about face, and they just kept fighting like that. Which is unique to the entire period, and just one of those things you just can't war game, because it would either become so common that it would defeat the purpose of heavy cavalry, or it would never. Yeah, it's just something you can't really war game. So yeah, that's a little fact there about the 28th. So that was the brass shako plate. Don't worry about that glob on there. That'll mostly evaporate off. Most of that is just water from the wet palette. See there, you can almost all that's just water. A lot of detail of that. With a wash, they look fantastic. I'll just compare it like that. You can see there's quite a lot of detail in that thing. Anyway, on to the cuffs and collars. Green is actually quite a rare colour for the British. Yellow is much more common. That's South Essex is obviously yellow from Bernard Cornwell. So yeah, green is a much more niche colour, and I chose it to represent the 87th because they're in the colour of Forlorn Hope. They're also an Irish regiment, so. Now, that may look a touch messy, but keep in mind, we're doing the face next, and then we're going to come through and it's cut in a white line on top of that, which is going to help frame it. So yeah, it's going to have a white line around the top of it, but that'll be after the wash. For me, there's two very important stages: before the wash and after the wash. So before the wash, which is sort of pre-wash phase that we're in now, it's all about blocking out colours. So all we're doing here is just dumping colour down, colour down, colour down. And we're going to let that colour come through the recesses. Some people like to just go black and work from there. I think that, first of all, it's hard to get your colours down over the top of black. Second, I like my miniatures more bright. Very bright, very standoutish. For example, this Highland officer. That tunic's too bright for the period, technically. But when it's 3 feet away from you on the table, it looks about right. And the kilt's just the kilt. So anyway, bright miniatures for me. This is a good example here. Just bright miniatures are much better. I used to really like painting dark miniatures because I would just do this and then dump heaps and heaps of wash on it and get that wash right down in the recesses, way down in there. And I thought, oh, look how it looks really highlighted. It looks really good. But really, all I was doing was painting it bright and then just darkening the absolute crap out of it. So yeah, it's an extra bit of step, but it really does pay off. It really does, especially on large areas like the pants and things like that. I think it really does help miniatures pop. I'm not claiming to be a fantastic painter, and I certainly would never ever even pretend to be anywhere near good enough to give anybody else advice. I'm simply showing you what I do, and if you want to copy me, that's on you as far as that goes. So I'm going to what I'm really going to do is jump over and paint that guy again. But what you're going to see is a cut to me painting the musket. So I just completely forgot to record painting the brown of the musket. Apologies, but yes, dirt splatter, you want to go brown. And one thing is, because the barrel is curved, and you got this flat bit here, I do like to make sure it is dry before going over it again, because you can get away with some things hitting the sort of like the neighboring color with it, but if you've got a curve, it just encourages that little bit of moisture to sort of slide down, and the next thing you know, you've ruined it. So do be careful with those. Next is going to be the skin. When you're painting British infantry of this period and this sort of Victorian / Napoleonic period, remember they do have the sideburns, although it wouldn't be called that, of course, because Burnside wouldn't be famous for another sort of 50 years. Ambrose Burnside is what sideburns are named for. Sideburn, Burnside. The Americans are very funny, aren't they? So make sure you get the sideburns in there, and just the back of the hair there. You can see it's gone up a little bit on the Shako. That'll get rid of that with a bit of black effect. Sound effect not required. Look at that, it's gone. Look at that, mistake gone. Okay, so you can see it's really not actually that many steps. It's sort of just like, okay, spray white, paint it white. If you want to use an airbrush and get a really nice, steady, light coat, or even coat, sorry, you can basically skip this step as well, but I don't use an airbrush. Originally, because I lived in a place with other people, living in an apartment, and the compressor would have been too noisy. Not sure what my excuse has been for the last 2 years. Probably I wanted to buy more minis and not airbrushes, but whatever. I don't use an airbrush. Rattle can, Games Workshop rattle cans are the best, but Army Painter works. Although Games Workshop, I struggle to get it to actually do chalk. Army Painter will chalk in the wrong weather. I've never had Workshop paints go bad on me. Workshop sprays go bad on me, to be honest. Well, I've only ever used the primers. And the coloured sprays are not primers, remember. The coloured sprays are actually not sold as primers, as opposed to Army Painter, where they are sold as primers. Always remember that, because especially if you're doing metal miniatures, you always must prime metal miniatures. So next will be the skin, and then the metal. So you can see now it's almost sort of dry, but it's just a little bit. See, any other color, so any other area, I would go through and start doing that now. But it's just because it's got that slight slope and it's so close and thin, and I just don't want to risk it bleeding in and then having to go through and get it all out with water and all that. So go on to the skin. As you can see, we have our emo goth punk rocking British line infantryman here. I just looked at that and I went, oh, that's interesting. Probably wouldn't be too hard to do undead versions of this. You'd chop the nose off and maybe drill the eyes and the mouth, but no, that's not something I'll be doing anytime soon. Although my local gaming group, 2nd Legion, I'll pop the logo up here, is actually an undead Roman holding a dice. He's just rolled a 1, hence why he's dead. So that's Alan Logan for our local gaming group, 2nd Legion. If you're ever on the coast, check them out at University of the Sunshine Coast. Great people. Yes, so the old skeleton. It would be cool to have an undead marching in ranks Napoleonic army. I think they would actually be very good at it, since essentially not running away is basically your job. But I doubt they'd have the ability to, because undead rarely ever use bows too. Especially, I'm thinking Warhammer Fantasy here. I know the Tomb Kings use a lot of bows, but they were sort of special undead. Thinking more like vampire counts, like your standard, like Game of Thrones, even the disaster of the last 2 seasons aside, you know, the White Walkers and their sort of weren't using a lot of ranged weapons, except for the White Walkers themselves. The zombies don't use ranged weapons, so I doubt zombie Napoleonic troops would actually be a good idea. Although, seeing as I've had this idea in my head for about 5 minutes, you can rest assured that I will be pondering it for the next few days, and may even make a video. But the pros and cons of undead, maybe skeleton, zombie, and skeleton and zombie type troops for the Napoleonic period, just as a bit of fun. As opposed to all the seriousness that is this channel, the stock seriousness as we listen to music and look at movies and paint miniatures and talk about wargaming, because of all the serious business we get up to. Speaking of fun, I had a awesome game this morning, a bit over 14-15 hours ago with Ariskany. You'll see him in the comments below on a lot of my videos, which I really, really appreciate, by the way. Everyone in the comments is phenomenal. I read them all. I am such a scatterbrained. It's just I try to reply to all of them, but a lot of the times I'll just sit there. I just have nothing to respond with, or I'm so scatterbrained. The video I uploaded, I think it's called From Old to New, or Old Soldiers New Again, took 15 hours to upload. It took like 10 minutes, but then I had it sitting open in a tab all day. As I was working on other stuff, and then I would paint some miniatures, and I go, okay, I'll design the thumbnail, and I get sort of halfway through it, and then I go and do something else. So it's see, I got distracted. The original point was supposed to be go and check out SitRep, link in the description, and you can see a game of Jim and I where I get we fight in Mogadishu, and there's Somalia there. There's heaps of other games on the SitRep channel too, with not only just with me and Jim, but with all sorts of people. And other content too. It's not just games. Heaps of cool stuff over there. But yes. So see what I mean? Thanks very much for all the comments, everybody. Is what I'm going with there. I do read them all, because it's only a handful to read. But I really do appreciate it. I get a little bit of excitement too every time my phone goes ding and the comment, or I see a little pop up on my screen. It's very much appreciated. So that aside, the bread bag here, or the forage bag, although forage is more of a French word anyway. I call it a bread bag. The bread bag here, which is what it's mostly called, I paint that off-white. You can paint it beige, paint it off-white, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of like a haversack type thing. This is your thing where you carry your rations, your sort of personal, most of your personal effects will go up in here. Although if someone's going to rob you, they're going to rob this. So sometimes you would put some personal possessions and booty in there. Your Shako actually contains stuff in it as well. I'll put a picture up, see if I can find one, because people think this is just a hat. You would have like a hairbrush, you would have a bunch of stuff in your Shako, as like your personal equipment. Some of it would be in the Shako. And sometimes you would even have loot in your Shako. You would have that sort of stuff in there. Is that you never see them with a chin strap. The British ones, you never see British Shakos with chin straps. I would think that would be such a handy thing. As someone who grew up on a farm and like, all of a sudden, granted they were in sort of slouch hat type things, but almost every farmer wears a chin strap. It's because the wind just blows it off. But I think, that's just a personal thing. You almost never see them with chin straps, although I grant you do see them sometimes with chin straps. Anyway, on to the metal of the musket, and then it is ready for a wash. I don't see anything in here that's particularly vital. See, I've worn the paint off there on the boot, and look at that. Look, paint's right back again. So on the musket, and then it is done. Musket in the bread bag, and it's done. As a general rule, keep reds and metallics until last, although in this case it's unavoidable, because reds will sit in your brush for a while. It takes a lot longer to get a red out than other colours. And metallics, of course. Ideally, you should have a separate paint pot for your metallics, like a separate water pot. I've never really done that, but you'll see actual, pro painters will always have a separate pot for their metallics. A lot of them won't use metallics at all, but those who do will have a separate pot. Never attempted non-metallic metals. It's just ridiculously beyond me. It's not funny. I don't even know how to do non-metallic metals, to be honest. I think it's just It's something I've never even looked at. So that paint's awful. Shockingly, it was a Games Workshop paint too. So I go from the top down. So bayonet. You can have a bit of a blob on here because you're just sort of applying it and then spreading it. Now, you want to orient yourself with the lock. So the lock is this bit on the side here. Pan, frizzen, hammer, all that sort of stuff. You want to... The frizzen is the thing that holds the... the frizzen is a little metal thing that gets hit with the anyway. You want to align that. And then you find that and you go to the left, and that's where your barrel is. Sometimes you see it and you might get confused. I get confused all the time. Especially guys who are holding their muskets. Have I got any examples here? Not really, but sometimes guys will be holding their lock sideways. Sometimes will be holding them forwards. And so this musket could be completely rolled over, so like leaning back a little bit. If you just come straight down like that, it's gonna wreck it. So you're gonna be highlighting one of the edges and not the actual musket itself. So let's get that again. So you do have to be careful with things like that. These don't seem to have barrel bands for some reason, but the French ones do and the British ones don't. Maybe this is how they're distinguishing them for Warlord. But that is a British infantryman ready for a wash and ready for a lighting up. So you know what? That'll be in video too. This is 10 minutes alone. Obviously, it's going to be sped up, but yeah, no, that's going to be in part 2. So thanks very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.